Hi, DragonCon family. Thank you for joining the alternate historical fiction track at our look at how to make a historical Barbie vintage costume. I've asked a couple of our cosplay friends to come join us, and they're going to show you their own process, but this is my process on how to do a vintage or inspired cosplay. And so you know, what I chose for this round was to do a pajama Barbie costume. I looked at a bunch of different options. There were some from the 60s and the 70s. Those outfits weren't, I'm going to wear this at DragonCon, so they weren't really the kind of outfits I wanted to run around the con in. So I decided on 2003 Pajama Fun Barbie, which if you guys had one of those, or if you think you might remember it, it was it was like a 2-pack where you got Barbie and Skipper in pajama outfits, and they came in like a bag that you could take around. So I'm gonna be remaking that. The first step is to find a pattern, because I'm not a drafter, I work from patterns. So the first thing I had to do was find patterns that I could modify or adjust to kind of look like Barbie's look in that. To be honest, what I chose to go with, I actually chose to go with Skipper's outfit. Barbie was just a t-shirt and a pair of pajama pants, which I think would have been super easy to do. However, might not have translated to pajamas or Barbie. So going with Skipper's is a button-down shirt and a pair of shorts, which also sounds a lot more comfortable at the con. Like, kind of excited to just run around in a breezy button-down shirt, a pair of shorts for like Sunday night. So I'm very excited about that. There is supposed to be a pajama party on Sunday at DragonCon, which is why I leaned towards a pajama look. It was just very convenient. So with that in mind, I kind of went through all of my own patterns that I already have. I have a stash because I sew. So if you guys know sewers, or if you're becoming one, you know that you build a stash up of patterns, you build a stash up of fabric, you build a stash up of odds and ends. It's just what we do. We collect as well as sew. But okay, so I had 2 pajama patterns. I have this one from McCall. The shorts were like a good fit for this idea, but this top isn't a buttoned up top. It's just a onesie, and I don't need a robe, so I did not wind up using this one, but I already had it. Or this pattern, which is what I wound up using. It's a very boxy outfit, so I do have to make some modifications, and this is where not drafting does not do me any favors, but I have figured out how to modify it, so it's okay. The one thing I would recommend is if you are taking a pattern and modifying it to produce a historical look, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do like a draft or a practice. I just used some scrap pattern or some scrap fabric to make myself like a mock. So this is my shirt, and when I tried it on, I realized like, okay, I need to take away this much of my shirt fabric to make it kind of go in and make the shape that I want. So I did a practice. I always practice the parts that I have trouble with. So I practiced the shirt itself to check the body, and I practiced the collar, which I sewed on inside out because it's practice. I don't care. In real life, I need to do it the other way, so I know that now. And then I practiced the button facing that we'll do. The shirt that I'm using right in the pattern, it comes with like this band at the bottom. And so I tested the baseline, and baseline fabric is, I'm gonna have to extend it a little bit, which is no problem. That's just cutting extra length onto my pattern pieces. Okay, so I practiced my outfit already, and I made the sizing adjustments that I need to make, so I know to do that when I go to sew my actual fabric. That will also be a process of sewing it together, trying it on, making more adjustments. That's just how sewing goes. So the other thing I went ahead and did is I went ahead and bought my accessories. Because Barbie is iconically pink, I wanted to make sure that I had some elements. I was really hoping I could find a like made by Mattel or like a big Mattel tag that I could add to my clothes, but I didn't find anything that I liked online, and I don't make patches. So instead, I bought a California Dreaming patch, which I'm really excited about. This shirt doesn't have a pocket on it, but I'm going to add a pocket. I have a pocket from a different pattern that I'm just gonna add onto this one. So I'm gonna add this on, which I'm excited. I also have a generic Barbie patch, which I might put on the sleeve or something. And I got a Barbie pin. I just like pins, so this is just fun for me for later, or for this cosplay too. And while I was working on all this, I went ahead and thought about how I want to do my hair. Hair and makeup I will do like much later, like right before I go to pack, if I remember to do it at all. So those tests will come way after this video is gonna be made. And but I know that I want to do like pigtails, I think, because also I might sleep in my pajamas. I doubt it, I'll probably change, but pigtails to sleep in. And so I bought clips, which I thought are super cute, and they're like those nice iconic Barbie pinks. So these are all elements that I'm gonna be working into my outfit, and so it kind of affected how I chose my fabric. One thing I suggest is that you always get test pieces of your fabric as you're like picking out your pattern, you're looking at your inspiration shots. Don't commit to like your final fabric until you've gotten a chance to like work through all your thoughts, because if you pick something and like say your hair accessories or your purse or whatever other pieces you have, and then it clashes with your fabric or it's not a good enough match, you've already committed to fabric and now you have these other bits and you can't really change your mind on anything. I actually got a ton of test stuff. Joann's was having a sale on fabric quarters, so I just picked up a bunch. I was hoping to make this one work. I like the bright pink, I like the flowers, but Pajama Barbie had a star pattern on all of it and not like a floral pattern, so going floral didn't feel like it would translate. So I did not bother with this one. I went with a tie-dye because I thought for a while I was going to do like more of a night dress kind of look. So either of those would have worked better, but at the end of the day, those didn't work out. These cost me $1, but I'm going to use them for something for swag and seek, like a little giveaway bag or something. So I have a use for these. This pattern, which is a bold kind of wild paisley, I thought I would use it as an accent piece in on the pockets and on the sleeves, and there's a couple other places like the waistband where I could do a different color than what I wound up using for the main part of my fabric. But that is not how I feel today, so we're gonna set this one aside. You might still see it later. We'll find out. And then I bought nice plain generic quality pink Barbie color. If you look, it's kind of a good match for this. This might be my accent color on a lot of pieces. Again, I have not entirely decided, so we will find out as we're making. The fabric that I wound up going with, even though this is the original Barbie, had like big stars and they were in pink and yellow, but I couldn't find any of that and I was not going to go on Spoonflower. I went with the Joann $2.99 a yard cotton sale. So instead, this is going to be our fabric for our costume. I've already cut out all my pieces because my sewing room gets really hot and I don't want to be up here too long. Also, it just takes a lot of time. But this is all the fabric that I have left of 3 yards of fabric. However, one thing I'm doing that the pattern doesn't say to do is I'm lining all of my clothes, because there's a good chance I might not like wear enough underneath. It's Dragon Con, and so layers at Dragon Con is kind of hot. So I lined everything to make sure that I have like no see-throughness, no like awkwardness. It'll be good and thick. It should hang a little better because it'll have a little extra weight, and I don't want to iron anything either. So hence I went through 3 yards on what probably would have taken me just like 1.5, but this is all of my fabric I have left from cutting all of the pieces. Okay, so let's get down to it. So I have my Pattern pieces, I've already tested my pattern. Again, that's a huge recommendation, especially if you want to go for like a screen accurate or very like period correct look. Um, Test it, try it on ideally with like everything you plan to wear. If you've got the shoes already, like try it on like that. So that way you have a really good idea on how it's going to sit on your body and where you might need to make tweaks. So I've already done all that. I've got my pieces cut out. I hang them on the mirror until I need them. And at this point, I've already chosen my colors. I'm gonna show y'all one of the places where I see like a chance to like tweak things a bit. So this is my pocket. I actually pulled it from a different pattern because I wanted to have a triangle pocket. But this area right here, I can either fold it like like it says to do, or I can turn around and I can cut out a piece and make a band in my contrast fabric, which I think might be really cute, especially since my plan is to put this patch on the bottom of my pocket, so it'll kind of sit there. Which hopefully will really give it that extra recognition in that this is a Barbie cosplay, because I am not gonna wear a blonde wig. It's hot. I don't want to. I'll have instead my own hair, so the more I can do to make it clearer that it's Barbie, I think the more it'll help. And so I'm gonna get into it. So a note on things that seem like a little contradictory is even if you are cosplaying on a budget, it is worth it to go ahead and buy thread, like really good quality thread, like the best that you can manage. Ideally it matches your fabric, but if you're not doing a ton of exposed stitches, the nicer thread will last a little longer and have a little more just like tension to it, which is great. Another thing is I have been investing in magnets, so when I go to do my pinning and stuff, like my pins stay placed. That's a special treat to myself. It has totally been worth it. And every time you do a sewing project, switch out your needles. I know you kind of want to use them until you completely wear them out. That's always been how I felt about it, but it does really improve how your project will go if you just throw away the old needle, put in a new one. I will use it twice. I will use it for my mock-up while I'm sewing that, and then for my actual project. But if I'm doing like a bunch of things, like if I'm making a bag to go with it, I'll switch out the needle. It just makes things go a little better. And one thing that I like to do, which is not always to my benefit, I do read all the sewing instructions a couple of times in advance, but I try to put as many pieces together at one time. So I'm sitting at my sewing machine and then I'm up ironing, and I'm not going the way that the instructions tell me to go. Like I will be doing the shorts and the shirt at the same time. That is definitely not what the instructions tell you to do. Just saves me a little like up and down and some time. So if that's something you're comfortable doing, I love doing it, but it has messed me up in the past. So always invest in a good seam ripper and do not be afraid to throw that out, because it's like an eraser for your fabric until it gets dull, and then it's kind of tedious. All right, so we are going to hop into some, I guess, montage while I do all of this. You guys will either see it fast or not see it at all, and then we'll just be done. Okay, so took us a while, but we got it done. Mostly done. There's some parts I'm going to do on my own later. But I have my sleepover shirt, and I kind of love how this pocket turned out. I'm very excited. So, I'm going to do the buttons later because buttons are my least favorite thing, and I can't decide between gold star buttons, which I have, or pink buttons. So I'm going to think on that. I also forgot I have my alterations marked on my draft, but I forgot, so I have to go in and make my side darts, but I'll do that later. Oh, I did decide to do contrast fabric, so it's 5:30. So you're gonna see contrast fabric on the pocket. You're gonna see it on the underside of the collar, and you're gonna see it on the cuff of the shirt. But I just like that better. I didn't like it all pink, like all pink stars. And I've got my shorts ready. I added pockets because that always matters. And then all I have to do is go through and just add the elastic, which I will just do later. That takes like a second. So that is my historical Barbie cosplay. I'm super excited to have it in time for the super fun pajama meetup that's going to be happening at DragonCon. So if you see a pink Barbie at the pajama meetup, that is who I am. And hopefully that gives you all some idea. Sorry, 5:30. My cats get fed at 5:30. So hopefully that gives you some idea about what to do when you're putting together your own. You want to start with your inspiration shot and find something that gives you a reference, whether it's a pattern, whether it's something that you're going to draft yourself, but find something that you can kind of follow as a plan and pull it together, and you will have your vintage inspired cosplay. So I'll see you at the con.
Hey guys, my name is May Hemmer, and this is my part on Barbie. I know you're probably like, oh, dark and moody. But sadly, my lighting is trash. So this is probably the best lighting I have for where I'm at right now. My sewing room has completely been inundated by a lot of projects. So we are talking about how to make a Barbie, how to become a vintage cosplay Barbie. This little background, I have been sewing for about 30 years. I've been a cosplayer for X amount of years. I'm an actress, model, quasi-retired nerdless performer. Um, so that's my background in costuming and stuff like that. Um, I've always loved Barbie, and as someone who's a person of color, it was kind of hard in the beginning until I discovered there were quite a few POC vintage Barbies once I got older. And there's a couple that I've kind of recreated, like closet cosplay style, which I'll get into that as well, outside of the entire like patterning and stuff like that. So let's start with that. Um, what what Barbie, you know, makes you think this is me? What Barbie speaks to you? There's a couple, but I'm a huge fan of the 70s. Like my mom was a 70s girl. I lived it, I loved it. Um, and it was great. And that's when I discovered the the Julia Sears Barbie doll. Let me see if I can pull up a photo of her. Let me see. Here we go. Let's just do this. I'm gonna screen share. Let's see. Share screen. We only want to show Julia. That is not Julia. Let's see. Window. Nope. I swear, guys, I am a professional. I'm just trying to figure out why it's not showing me. Oh, because it's an ad. That'll do it. Don't you love technology? All right. So let's try this again. Present. We're going to do share screen, and we're going to look at the Talking Julia bar. So this is Julia Sears. I love her. She's always, like just so okay, to give you a little bit of background, how do I want to put it? She this Barbie speaks to me as, as someone that, came from a background, of not being used to seeing people like you, um, and things like that. So when you see her, It's just like giving big hair, giving, 70s foolishness. And as you can see here in our lovely thing, she has the pantsuit. There's like the cute little top with the skirt, with the jacket, the shoes. I also love how back in the day they really did include hangers. Mm-mm-mm-mm. So, what I would do together to honestly start that this process is not to break the bank. Let's just be honest. We don't want to break the bank, and that is just the way things are. Because not all of us are balling. Some of us are balling out of control. So what I am doing right now is pulling up because I have to search. As lovely, lovely as that is, um some cute little patterns, like if you're big into sewing, some things that have pulled, and you don't have to be exact, like you don't have to be canon. There's a couple of pantsuits that I personally love, that are not exactly mainstream um patterns. There is a person on Etsy, I believe, um, and it's a Paloma. It's Our Lady of Leisure is the Divine Sewing Patterns. She has a lovely pantsuit, as you can see in the Julia Sears, as more of a cinched waist and a formed bodice. Some of these are very obviously we're not in the 70s again. And we do see some 70s uh patterns. However, they're not exactly living up to sometimes what we want. So let me show y'all the pants. See if I can kill this one. Stop screen. Um, and like I said, if you're into sewing, we're gonna start with that first, and then we're gonna go into the other thing. So let me go to the Paloma. So this is a pattern that's super cute. It is a beginner pattern. So if you're starting out, this is not a terrible way to start. I do believe that the Julia Sears Barbie um, may be a more of a straight leg, not as much as a wide leg like this. But it's a start. Like I said, you don't have to be canon with everything. It's not about being 120% accurate. That's where I come from. If you really want to be 120% canon, that's totally fine. Sometimes you have to, be within your means, which also means you can go to thrift stores. You'd be surprised what you can find in thrift stores. Um, there's plenty. I mean, personally in my area, I've seen so many stretchy sequin pantsuits. And it's kind of like palpable where, I mean, sadly, I'm like 5'2" and I'd have to take them in. And sometimes I don't have that luxury of doing that with two small humans and a bunch of other jobs. But you can find some stuff that fits. And then if not, you want to sew with sequins, stress sequins, by all means, do that canon stuff. But like not everything is accessible budget wise, so it's not a big deal. But if you're looking for some simple patterns, I do love that Etsy designer. There's a couple of Vogue ones and stuff like that. There's plenty. Just totally go onto their websites. You can go to the Simplicity, the Berta. They're all kind of in one website, so that's a good place to start off for inspiration. Now, when it comes into uh what is it? Let's go back to materials. Um Patterns, if you want materials, this one's like a stretch sequin, two-tone affair, uh color block, silver on one side, gold on the other, high neck. To me that is giving star. To me that is giving luxury because it's sparkly, it's giving you out there, getting you out there. So, and if you see me looking to the side, I have this giant computer that it doesn't give me the luxury of being able to, how do I want to put it, being able to look in one direction, especially when I'm trying to pull up my notes, um all that fun stuff. So that's into that. So, but like I was saying before, you don't have to do all that. Go to a thrift store, find something close. There's things you can dye. It doesn't always have to be sequins or shimmer or something like that, as long as it gets the point across. Now, when it comes to accessories, you got to have the belt. And I'm focusing on the jumpsuit right now. Obviously, there's like a whole skirt suit set. Let me pull that back up for you so you can see. Da, 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 da. There we go. So as you can see, there is a cute little skirt set if you want to do that option. So it's pretty much like a blouse, a very simple cut blazer with piping or trim that you would like to do, gold buttons, um, and just simple mini skirt is what it looks like. And then some blue shoes. Does it have to be exact same color of blue? No. Is it close enough? Sure. Can you find something that you can alter in your closet? Awesome. But you can go thrifting for some of this. You'll be surprised the amount of skirt suits you can find at some Goodwills and stuff like that that you can zhuzh up with just some gimp trim or some, double fold bias tape if you just want to take a quick and easy thing. But as you can see, there's not a lot to her. Like she's just especially with the jumpsuit here, she's a nice wide chunky belt with a giant silver belt buckle. Once again, thrifting. As much as I would love to make a lot of stuff, sometimes I personally don't have time, or I have a lot of more a lot larger projects that I would like to spend my time on. Especially if it comes like for my Renaissance festival. I have a lot that I have to do to that because it has to be historically accurate and requires approvals. So that's great. Now hair is big. Hair is bouffant. It's giving how would I like Texas cuz I grew up there. One thing that they say is, the bigger the hair the closer to God. You know. So when you look at Julia, she has a nice big bouffant. You'd be surprised the amount of wigs that you can go to a beauty supply store. I'm gonna say something super controversial. You do not have to go to Arta wigs, especially for something like this that's meant to be more natural hair. There's a lot of wigs that you can find that's already pre-cut like this that you can fluff up. Now, I'm not saying this to be weird, but you'd be surprised what you can find in the wigs that are meant for older individuals. Some of them do have that bigger bouffant. If you can't find the right color, as messy as it can be, there is the hairspray. But if you have the budget, there are plenty, plenty, plenty of human hair wigs that you can style and mold yourself if you have the experience with cutting hair and things like that. Otherwise, I highly recommend hitting the beauty supply stores because 9 times out of 10, they have a wig in that style. My glasses are doing a wig in that style that you can work with or take a curling iron to because a lot of those wigs have a certain temperature that you can do up to. So you can take a straight, like a flat iron, a straightener. I guess I'm old school. Um, a curling iron, stuff like that, so you can get to that point. And you really want to make sure it stays. Everybody has their own thing. I love me some got to be glued, especially back then. Like I hate to call it kind of helmet hair, but it stayed in place. And to create that perfect um kind of Barbie look, you're a doll, and you want to, even though you want to look obviously realistic, you kind of still, in my opinion, want to maintain that aspect that you are a doll. And I don't mean like a weird one. I mean like you are embodying a very, depending on, very progressive doll, and those with a lot of different jobs and stuff like this. So you kind of want to keep truth to that nebula, true to that aesthetic. Um, so that's honestly, I probably copped out on the easy one, but honestly, she's one of my favorites. Of course, I've had the giant ball gown, like Christmas edition ones, but I do believe the only ones that really like spoke to me are some of the older ones. To begin with, this is a vintage Barbie. I figured I'd start with one of my faves, which is the Speaking Julia Sears. Um, oh Lord, I am dehydrated, y'all. Um, so to me, this is a very simple look, but you really want to execute. So let me see if I can pull this up one more time. As you can tell, I do love her because I'm just gonna keep on like pulling her up on screen. So as you can see with her, she has a dark eye, a dark smoky eye. Her brows are arched and well manicured and stuff like this. So you can tell like she obviously has dark eyebrows to match her dark hair. The blush is not a lot. You see a lot of highlight though. It could just be photos, but I would personally recreate that to give it that look of just like the doll box. So then you can do, the nude lip. It's very natural with Julia. Um, so I would just keep it very natural, but go heavy on the eye. Get some lashes, get some serious mascara. I recommend Milk personally. And just keep it a fresh face. Put on your foundation, highlight, conceal, put on some simple blush, but pay attention to the eyes. That's what I feel like with this specific Barbie doll. She also has like, some earrings. So she has some, like, as you can see, like right here, there's like a bracelet and stuff like that. Um, but zhuzh it up. Do something that's your own spin on that, because once again, you want to make sure you feel comfortable in that moment. Um, so yeah, if you have any more questions, I kind of really love this. I wish I could have more time to go over this, but there's a lot more that I could put into this conversation. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm pretty sure you can reach out to any of us. I hate to put people out there on the spot, but I know you can reach out to me by all means. Um, as again, I'm Mayhemmer. And hopefully I see y'all on Dragon Con. I have produced 2 of the shows. But yeah, this was fun. I hope that you have the same Barbie love that I do. And I can look forward to seeing some of you guys, creating your own Barbie looks. Bye.
For my Barbie look, I decided to go with the best decade of all, the 1980s, where the best people were born. So I went with although this was made in 2022, the 80s rewind Barbie, the prom queen version, of course. I decided to go with that look because it encapsulates everything that's 80s. I love things that are gorgeous or hideous. If we don't have the really unfortunate looking time periods like the 80s, how can we really appreciate the beauty of like the 40s and 50s? There were 3 big changes for Barbie in the 1980s. One, in 1980, the first black Barbie was produced. And in number 2, in 1981, the first Asian Barbie also came to light. And 3, instead of being, or Barbie, instead of being uh, a fashion model or, a bride or, just a general lady, she became uh, more career oriented. One of the rules for Barbie is that she was never allowed to be married. The creator didn't want her to be married because no one wanted to play with, you know, Barbie with 3 kids and a husband at home. Like she said that like she wasn't going to go on adventures if she was always, as the creator said, saddled down with a husband and kids. So therefore, Barbie always remained single. There was a big written campaign to get Barbie a boyfriend at some point, and I believe that was also uh, actually no, that was not in the 80s, but it was around that time, I believe. So going back to Barbie, to create this look or a look similar to this, the best part is you can go to most thrift stores like Goodwill, any sort of local um, Value Village or Value Village if you're fancy, and find anything that's polyester. You got a good bit of sequins. There's more sequins than rhinestones back then. Uh, the other important thing to get the silhouette right is a lot of structure, either petticoats or enough interfacing in the sleeve to make it stiff. At this time, one would think there would be like well fitted outfits, but when women were entering the workforce, everything was very boxy. It was the power suit. Women were trying to compete and look like they could live it up in a man's world. Some of the Barbie commercials are, by today's standards, wildly offensive. If you watch them, if Barbie can go to work and come home and still take care of her man, it's like huge shift during this time. So to go back to the look, kind of look like wings, but also it could be a big bow. It could be a lot of things. But I like the width, and that makes her look like a linebacker. So you get the shoulder pad feel without actually having to use them. Uh, while typically polyesters would be the thing that you would look for, this is Dragon Con. It's going to be 1,000,000 degrees in September. Standing outside for the parade, you'll melt. So try to avoid lots of layers. If you go with a petticoat, make sure it's like a really stiff tulle and not something soft like this. If you get a real stiff one, you don't have to use very much, and it's airy, so you still get a breeze. The other option is if you find things at the thrift store, you can always cut them up and sew them together to make a truly outrageous look. It's always good to stick to pink though. For makeup, the color palettes was very very bright colors. Traditionally, Barbie had been like a little softer and more colors to infantilize Barbie. At this point, they were still pinks and purples and blues, but they were just very vibrant and bright, which you can see here in the Glam Light Barbie makeup eyeshadow palette. Fabulous colors, the sheen. Everything was very pastel, or not pastel, light neon colors. So you got that. Highly recommend. Also, everything was sprayed down within an inch of its life. Got to be with Dragon Con, hotel size. Also great for putting on wigs and having them last through a nuclear holocaust. Let's see. So another big thing for the 80s was bangs. Typically, you would get a big round roller, wrap the bangs around them, and spray the heck out of them so it can deflect bullets if needed. That's how stiff and crunchy those bangs were. You can always go with the typical Barbie blonde, but again, it's going to be Dragon Con. It's going to be hot. No one's going to want to have a bunch of plastic on their head all day. They're going to be sweating bullets. So I don't recommend necessarily bleaching your hair for a cosplay, but if there's other alternatives to a hot wig, I would go for that. You can even find, which considerably cheaper than real human hair, nice fancy wigs. You can find some on Amazon for fairly cheap, $100 or less for pretty long, and those are so much lighter and more comfortable with like a lace front. Highly recommend. During the 80s, there was also one of the most popular Barbies was the like totally long hair radical Barbie, where her hair went down to her feet and her hair was also crimped. If you don't know what crimped hair is, I'm jealous. Footwear, because we all know at Dragon Con you're going to be walking a lot. Let's see. While the typical Barbie look is extremely high heels, and you can see the silhouette there, but let's face it, you're not going to be able to get down to the Hyatt and get a rum bucket with these on. So for photo shoots, great. But when it's time to actually walk around, I recommend flats or even like little kitten heels like these. If you want to go with heels, something that kind of matches, something that's comfortable. You could also get something called moleskin, which is just like a little felt, sticky felt almost from CVS on 14th Street, open 24 hours during Dragon Con. And if you stick that to your foot, it kind of gives you some padding on the shoe if it gets that uncomfortable. But realistically, just carry a pair of flats in your purse. Barbie's measurements have been a topic of great frustration and lots of conflict. So if you look at this from a dressmaker's point of view, Barbie's clothes are not made with tiny little looms to make the fabric. They're human size fabrics and human size, snaps and whatnot. So if you're going to have a shirt and then a sweater or a jacket, your neck is going to be really tall, or your waist is going to be really small for multiple thick layers of fabric on a very small, tiny body. If she had normal proportions and then you dressed her with big fabric, she's going to look like a big wad, a bundle of fabric. So there's actually a reason why her neck is so long and her limbs are so long and her waist is so tiny. Um, and while they have been trying to change this in the recent uh, in the recent years, they've been rolling out different shaped bodies for Barbie. Realistically, that means you're going to have to make all different kinds of size shoes, and then they're not going to all fit in the same bathtub, in the same dream house, in the same. They can't all wear each other's clothes and shoes. So there's a lot of technical issues that go into it. It's not just, you know, because she was based on a German sex doll from the 50s. There's actually a reason why she has these proportions. So I tried to make my Barbie have the general proportions of her, of the original, which were 57-inch bust, which she only has a 46, with a 26-inch waist, but she only has a 28. So imagine 10 more inches on that bust. That is wild. If you're looking for a sewing pattern, check out Simplicity Pattern 8246 or 8264. Well, you'll see it on the screen. That concludes my section of Barbie. And I slipped a gem quote in there as well.